Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Voices of Chandler, and we're coming to you live from the Perch Brewery here in
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Voices of Chandler, the podcast. I'm your host, Melina Zuniga, and my intention for this particular podcast episode was to be coming to you live straight from the Perch Brewery in downtown Chandler. That's where we kicked off a city-led speaker series that focuses on entrepreneurship, creative alliances, and how the arts impact communities. It was our first VOC live event that featured a panel of businesses like SanTan Brewing Company, Haus Brewery, the Perch Brewery, and the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild. They talked about craft brewing, downtown Chandler, and downtowns across Arizona, led by Local First Arizona.
If you can hear squawking, it's the birds. We're at the Perch. They're known for having birds out here, so you hear them, right? I hear them. We hear them.
We had some audio issues with the live stream, so I'm not going to put you all through the pre-show, although it was amazing. Instead, I'm going to jump right into the panel moderated by Thomas Barr from Local First. Enjoy.
All right, thanks so much. My name's Thomas Barr. I'm the Vice President at Local First Arizona. We're a statewide coalition of small businesses. So I got a call from John at Chandler not too long ago saying, hey, Thomas, will you come out? We're going to talk beer, talk downtowns, talk small business. And so I was 100% in. So we're super excited to be here today to talk to the experts about what's going on in the craft brew industry in Arizona, what's going on in craft beer just in general, talk about downtowns. Why do downtowns and breweries coexist so fluidly, not only in Arizona, but in our country? And why Chandler? What's going on in downtown Chandler, and why is it flourishing, and why are so many great things happening? So we're going to start, and I'm not going to introduce these fellas. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. But let's do quick, just go down the line. Rob, we'll start with you and come down this way. Who you are, what you represent, and current favorite beer.
Hi, my name is Rob Fulmer. I serve as the Executive Director for the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild. So we represent the policy, education, and promotional aspects of 100 businesses and 120 locations across Arizona. You asked me my favorite beer. It just happens to be the one I have in my hand right now. That's my standard answer on that. If I have 3 of these without asking for anything else, then I know I've had a good time. So we'll see what else is on the table.
He's also the fashion director for all breweries.
Hi, I'm Jamie with SanTan Brewing. I oversee all retail that we do. My favorite beer currently is a beer called Stratoblaster. It's an IPA that we have that I can have 3 of often.
Hey everybody, my name is Julian Wright. I'm the founder and CEO of Haus Brewery. And my favorite beer, anytime it's available, is Doc's German-style Pilsner, which I probably overconsume on occasion.
I'm Bucky Sisson. I'm the head brewer here at the Perch. My favorite beer is whatever's fresh and hoppy.
All right. Well, let's get going. We want to start today by talking about just the state of craft beer and craft brewing in Arizona. We're elephant in the room, 2 years through a pandemic. Obviously, the craft beer industry had to experience that just like any other industry out there. Rob, I want to start with you. Where are we at right now? How is craft brewery in Arizona? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it thriving? Is it growing? Give us an update.
Sure. These guys are some of the most resilient people in business right now. And I think if you talk to them in March when this was all going down, there was a lot of pessimism. There were some national numbers where 80% of all brewery owners thought they were going to not make it in the next couple months. Well, what changed is the government programs did work to some degree. The unfortunate side effect is I think everyone was holding on to their employees as long as they possibly could. Once those programs came into effect and they were able to sort of let go of those people, whether you feel that those programs are enough was immaterial. I think they they networked together, they got the information, they pared down, and you're not going to hear too much complaining about things from these guys. They have supply chain issues right now. There's an 8 billion can deficit across all beverages. So that means you might not see what you used to see on the shelves or to go. So grain is a problem, but they're used to these kinds of problems in their startup days, and they're really, again, resilient. And as the guild director, we learned a lot from them. And I would say our organization is a lagging indicator of what's happening, and we're in this spot right now where we have a really huge event coming up that will possibly make or break what we've got going on. It's called the Strong Beer Fest, and I need to make that plug. February 19th, strongbeerfest.com. It's in Bell Bank Park in Mesa. So big fundraiser for us. You'll see about 108 breweries, possibly a lot more. We got some time on that. But I think they've done great, and I know I saw some nods. So.
Well, I'm going to bounce over to Julian, because as I saw, personally, a lot of businesses struggling over the pandemic. You're a business that grew and started expanding. So where are things at for you in your perspective, from a growth perspective, and all the things you guys are doing at Pedal House?
Well, before you give us too much credit for expanding, realize we signed all those leases pre-COVID. So in a lot of cases, we've just pushed them off till now. In fact, Phoenix just opened November, I think almost a year behind schedule. Thankfully, we had pretty understanding landlords, and everyone gave us a bit of flexibility on that. But going back to March of last year, if it weren't for the PPP, we would have at least had to raise money to survive, and I'm not sure how willing people were to open their wallets to throw more money into the restaurant business back then. So when we did get the PPP, it definitely saved our ass. 2020, like the balance of the year was really up and down depending on which way the COVID wind was blowing and how bad cases were, especially here in Arizona. Thankfully, it wasn't a full shutdown like in a lot of states. I don't think we'd be here today, and certainly not expanding if that had been the case. 2021 started off gangbusters and really never slowed down. 2021 in Tempe, which is 6 years old, was the best year we've had in the 6 years we've been open by a solid 60%. So I feel like there was a lot of pent-up demand because we still didn't have, the Art Fest at first. We had a kind of a minor, no pun intended, spring training, and a lot of the big events we were used to that helped those sales were canceled. Despite that, it was a great year, and 2022 is starting off even better than 2021. So I'm pretty optimistic. Back in the closure of March, I was pretty jealous of breweries like SanTan that had cans to sell in retail, because that was the one part of our industry that grew significantly as everyone was drinking at home, and we didn't have anything to sell, really. So me, Doc, Chris, and Jason just drank all the stale beer that was in there. And thoroughly enjoyed doing that. But nowadays, I'm pretty optimistic. Phoenix is open pretty strong, and I think Mesa will be pretty interesting. It's still a little bit of a sleepy market, and optimistic about the future, basically.
Cool. And Jamie, largest locally owned beer production business in the state, was able to have that strong retail arm hitting the pandemic and still going today. What are things like from your perspective in the industry, both from having a storefront, right, a place that people come to, but also being able to rely on a different arm of revenue that kind of probably held you guys through?
Yeah, I think 2020, I don't want to say we got lucky, but having multiple revenue generators, and when one is shut down, the grocery stores volume was up, and it was a good year for that. We also had 14 years at the restaurant of loyal customers that I couldn't believe how much to-go food they ordered. So the support from our loyal guests during that time, it wasn't 2018 numbers, but it was enough to keep us in the black. So we had a good 2020 with all things considered. And then obviously there was next to nothing for on-premise business, but that beer turned into sanitizer, and we found a way to make money on that. So,
yeah.
2021 for us was a great year as well. It was not a record year. We had a couple record months, but it was not a record year for us. 2018 was still probably our best year, but 2022 has been great.
Sure. And then Bucky, from a micro perspective, right? Single location, you relied heavily on people coming here to consume, and having to adjust to that. You're still here today, obviously beautiful facility, doing amazing things. What are things like for you guys now?
Well, in 2020, we took a lot of that time to expand the facility while we were closed down.
Sorry, it's the plate in my head.
Go closer.
And instead of trying to just limp through, we took the time and expanded the facilities, this nice upstairs space. So we didn't waste any time with that. And then when we opened back up, we opened up strong. We had all the space for people to come in and enjoy. So it was outside, so we could have the people, not have to be as close every table or whatnot. So it kind of worked out good for us in a long run. And 2021 to now, we've been rolling through. I mean, just everyone wants to enjoy being outside, so it kind of works out.
Cool. Well, getting more specifically into trends in beer, and specifically, I guess, being in Arizona, the types of beer we consume here different than any other part of the country. What are the trends in craft beer in Arizona right now? What are people wanting to drink? What are breweries doing to serve up the demands? And what do you anticipate coming in the next few years that you're probably preparing for? And anybody can answer.
Hazy IPAs are blowing up, but we actually drink a lot of everything here. We're fortunate as a state to have two seasons at the same time. I mean, when you consider Flagstaff. But if it has the name IPA in it, it's doing really well. But I'm actually hoping somebody will say Pilsner over here.
Be nice. No. We keep trying, but our top 5 retail beers are all IPAs. So no matter how many other beers we try, it's IPAs out there.
I mean, one thing I've noticed over the last 2 years especially, maybe 3, but mostly 2, is lighter style beers becoming more popular. When we started back in 2015, everyone was just talking about IPAs, which was fine, but we started out brewing more German style beers, so Pilsners. We did a few Belgian beers. And about 4 years ago, I approached Doc because we had Coors Light on tap. And nothing wrong with Coors Light, but we were selling a heck of a lot of it. So I remember approaching him, not sure exactly what the facial expression would be, about brewing a light beer, and which I think made us the first, recent brewery in Arizona to actually brew a light beer. And he said, no problem, I got a recipe. We brewed it. We kept the training wheels on because we had our light beer and Coors Light for a while, and then finally felt comfortable enough taking Coors Light off tap and trying to convert what is a lot of tourism in Tempe between football games and triathlons, et cetera. People from all around the country, getting them to adopt our light beer, which is a little heavy lifting at first, but now it's, I think, our number 1 selling beer, both on property and off property. Our Pilsner does really well. And then I think our fastest growing beer over the last couple years has been our Hazy IPA, which is kind of what Rob was alluding to. And it's obviously an IPA, but it's a little bit lighter. Tends to be a little more citrus forward, and I think a perfect beer for Arizona. So I think lighter beers and Hazy IPA seem to be the trend, assuming we ignore the elephant in the room, that being all seltzers.
Speaking of,
I had some help with that, yeah.
Yeah, I just have to say hazies are definitely big, or IPAs in general, but I think people that like a lot of light beers and definitely sours too. I mean, you can put a sour on and that stuff's pretty much gone. So,
Cheers, boys.
cheers.
Hey, to the Perch and the hospitality, too.
Yeah, thanks, Perch. So,
cheers.
why hazy? Is it Arizona? Is it the food we eat here? Are we cool or are we boring? What is it?
It's a national thing, and it's a different way to express hops than they've traditionally been made. And it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's not something I necessarily always favor, but like I said, I think we do still drink a wide variety of beers. People ask me why would anyone drink a stout in the 100-degree weather, and I'm like, well, I have a hot cup of coffee in the morning, so why would that be unusual? But again, I think we're an interesting market because our weather doesn't reflect what's going on in the rest of the country, but we still also have that other climate in Flagstaff. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. So buy different beers, people.
Cool. All right. Last question regarding kind of state of craft brewing in Arizona. Jamie, we see SanTan doing distilling, expanding into that. Are we potentially going to see more breweries jump into that arena, explore that? Is it really just kind of based on the owners of the business and what they're interested in doing, or is that a trend that we're going to continue seeing grow?
I think it's a combination of both, and I've seen an uptick in breweries nationally that are also distilling. I think it's like when people say bands start playing not heavy metal anymore because they're 45 years old. Well, I can't drink 5 craft beers every night, but I can drink a couple whiskey and sodas every night. So I think it's also what we tend to start gravitating to. Part of it is we have half the equipment. Whiskey starts with beer, so you have to make beer to make whiskey. We were halfway there. So, and the other half is we love whiskey, so why not venture into that?
So, Julian, when are we going to see some Pedal House distilling? Maybe?
I would say unlikely in our future. We're trying to stay pretty close to one game plan. In fact, we have no plans to do any canning even, which probably seems unusual. Instead, we're taking my combination of sort of restaurant background and Doc's ability to make great beer. We're going to keep opening brick and mortar beer experiential restaurants and bars. And just, that's kind of our lane. So as tempting as it is, it's taken me 6 years and I'm still only maybe halfway there to figure out the manufacturing of beer, let alone trying to figure out another SKU like spirits. So we're pretty happy just making good beer, and when we want whiskey, we'll drink SanTans.
Cool. Bucky, any plans?
Not that I know of, but I'm willing to do whatever I'm asked. So.
Right on.
Hey, Tom, I can actually tell you a little bit what policy-wise we got going on that might.
Let's hear about it.
So I do think you're already seeing more products that sort of bleed the lines between what's beer and what's a seltzer and what's what they call RTDs, ready to drink. What you might see on the shelf might say gin and tonic, but I mean you can make that make that with malt, you can make that with wine, you can make that with direct spirits, and you can concoct that sort of flavor profile. And that's the direction things are going in some of the volume stuff. I mean, we are losing shelf space to seltzers, and there are some breweries that are making seltzers. I don't know if that's a long-term trend. I think that's anyone's guess. But we are structuring our policy, our laws for these guys to be able to, if not directly make those products, to partner with them. We have something called alternating proprietorship. So in a single facility, you could have a brewery and a distillery or several breweries with their own licensing, and they can collaborate on certain aspects of what they do. Cider and mead, by the way, are wines. We are trying to sew up the ability for wines to be included in that, so you could have a cider house, a brewery, under one sort of business structure for the consumers, but they would be independent things. And I think that what we lack here in Arizona is we lack destination breweries. We have some destination wineries. But if you can imagine having all three components, distilling, wineries, and breweries, working together to create some really cool things. Has anyone ever gone to like upstate New York, that kind of atmosphere? Yeah, that's what we want to build. And And it also could be in a small footprint like this, especially when you have people like Julian having these, Main Street experiences, but also having a production facility, again, in the same way as SanTan. Most of you might not even know that there's a giant production facility in Chandler. You can tour it now, right? And they got the spirits, but most people are familiar with what's down the street.
So speaking of destination breweries, kind of connecting that to the downtown atmosphere, why do breweries tend to open up shop in downtowns? Is it something to do with trying to connect to something that's already somewhat a destination? Is it, Jamie being in downtown Chandler for so long, wanting to build that destination with others? Why is it that breweries downtowns pretty much fluidly always connect the dots together?
I think a lot of it has to do with high density living and other businesses to collaborate with. I don't think Chandler was a destination 14 years ago when we moved down here, but it certainly is now. I don't know. I know there are a bunch of them, but downtown seem like the perfect spot for a brewery, just like sports teams. Like it's the hometown brewery or the hometown sports team, but it just makes sense.
Sure. And I mean, when you look across Arizona, you could pick pretty much any downtown and see a brewery there for the most part. Julian, as somebody who has breweries in multiple downtowns, what is it for you that has drawn you to those different areas rather than, maybe finding a less or a lower lease, in a spot right off the freeway, right? You could find other places to go. Why have you chosen to go to downtowns?
Well, full disclosure, we're moving our brewery to a warehouse facility in Chandler, as a matter of fact. We chose Tempe originally because when we signed the lease in 2014-ish, we were still kind of on the tail end of the recession, and we were able to put a good deal together on a building big enough to do both brewing and have a restaurant. And, most of my background's in restaurants, and I've always chosen, for better or worse, to cluster in downtowns because I just like the walkability, especially if you're drinking and you live nearby. That's kind of a bonus. We're staying in a hotel, so to me, I like downtowns just because of the synergy with other bars and restaurants. Not sure it's the best place to manufacture beer because you're not getting retail prices for the beer you're selling. But I think having a brick and mortar presence in a downtown makes a ton of sense.
Sure. And Rob, looking across the state, obviously with flexibility in Arizona to have a front in a downtown, maybe produce in a different area like Julian's talking about. Do we see that a lot, or do most breweries produce and have their brew pubs in the downtown space that they brew in as well?
Well, there's not really one story, but there are breweries that start in a downtown area, and once they get larger, scale kind of dictates, and also you want to have more guests, right? And that brewing takes up a lot of space. So, there isn't one story for all breweries, and there isn't one story for the life of a brewery, but, a very smart person that's in this area, Joe Johnston, once told me, and I think about it a lot. He said, I want to open a business that's walkable between two breweries because he knows that people will gather there. They'll have their happy hours there. Even if they're a place that doesn't have a storefront, it will be seen as an asset for people working there. I think the walkable part is the important piece because people live all over the city, but if they could say, hey, let's meet in Chandler, and you really don't even have to pick the brewery until you get till the first person lands, right? And you'll explore this city, this downtown area, like from the New Look Cinema, which has a brewery, to here is about a quarter mile. But all the way, you can look in window shop, and you can find out if a new restaurant went into space or look at the menus. But if you wanted to go, say, to I don't know what's by Pecos in that mall, different strip mall mentality, right? Like you said, hey, I gotta go to Verizon store and switch out my SIM card. Do people do that anymore? But anyway, you would not want to walk that distance because the experience is, it's the same distance, but the experience is different. And I think that's what's really appealing is tapping into people being excited to be in an area and just getting that walk-up traffic.
Sure. So what kind of relationship and as a stakeholder in a developing downtown do the three of you have in Chandler? Jamie, you've been here for a while. Bucky and Julian, a little bit newer here, but obviously the experience that Rob is talking to between your breweries is really important, because if it's a bad walking experience, you're more than likely only to go to one of those establishments rather than experience multiple things within a block or a neighborhood, right? And so what is the stakeholder partnership relationship responsibility that you feel that you have or that you've contributed to in downtown Chandler developing the way that it has and that it's continuing to right now?
Jamie?
I guess that's me. I guess Mary could answer that best from the DCCP, but that's, as a committee that I'm on, part of most of what we look at is walkability, cleanliness, safety of the downtown, which is super important. Lighting, getting foot patrol or police patrol on the weekends, things that we speak out because it is so important for people to be able to walk, I always say, from one end to the other and feel safe about it. We still have some work to do. There's still some dark spots at night, but it is something I think that business owners work together on, because we do want them to be able to visit all the restaurants downtown, not just ours.
Yeah, I would just say, kind of piggybacking off the last question, like, generally speaking, whether you're a craft beer just enthusiast or full-blown craft beer nerd, you typically want to, it's like an adventure. You want to taste lots of different styles of beer. So if they're clustered together, it's easier to do that as opposed to driving all over town. That's part of the reason I like being in downtown. It's probably the same thing goes for wine. If you're a wine enthusiast, you can go to an area that has 5, 6, 7 different little tasting rooms. I mean, that's perfect place to be dropped off and start your journey. I forget what the other question was about the stakeholder. What exactly were you asking?
What I guess responsibility do you feel you hold as a brewery here as things continue to develop? Are you actively engaged with how the city is making plans in issues or opportunities that come up downtown as a local brewery that has a stakeholder relationship here?
I think to some degree, but we've had a lot of faith in the city of Chandler. We've had a lot of interaction with the city of Chandler. We've always felt like they were on top of it and making good decisions. So I wouldn't say we're overly involved in the direction of the city. We kind of trust it in their hands. As far as like other breweries in the area, a manager of mine came up with a term I'd never heard before. He said it probably 10 years ago, but we were talking about the other restaurants around us on Mill Avenue, and he used the term cooperation. So it's like we still compete on some level, but one thing I like about Chandler is that we all know each other pretty well. We all get along. We all have beers together. So again, while you could kind of consider there's some level of competition at the end of the day, but we look at it more of like a pretty cooperation type of approach to doing business together, or playing in the sandbox together, as I like to say.
Sure. And Bucky, being in the industry, brewing, have you felt the Perch has taken the same perspective in having a working relationship with the other breweries, building trust, partnerships, that kind of stuff with everybody?
Yeah, well, I think I definitely have a pretty good relationship with these two guys. I mean, they've always been there, helped me out with some yeast and stuff like that. And having Pedal House downtown Chandler now is kind of nice to be able to go over there and have a beer or so, try their stuff.
Cool. Simple.
So recently in Phoenix, someone asked me, because there's a lot of breweries opening in the Roosevelt Row area right now, And I always get asked, like, all right, does that make you nervous? There's a bunch of breweries opening. I'm like, no, the more the better, because it creates a beer destination. So I think breweries are one of the best things for a downtown to attract, because you become that sort of, craft beer tourism destination. So I think it's good for downtowns to have as many breweries as possible.
Cool. And Julian, I know we've talked in the past about different places you visited and getting inspiration from those and kind of infusing them into some of your establishments. Is there anywhere else you've traveled to that you've seen and, kind of aspired? It'd be really cool if we could bring this energy back to Arizona, be it Chandler, be it Tempe, wherever one of your breweries are.
I haven't traveled a ton since 19, at least the places that are considered sort of beer-centric places. I think we did a trip in the summer of 19 to Seattle, 3 of us and one of our guys that lives there. And geez, we hit 40 breweries in 3 days, to the point where on Sunday, which I think was our last day, at about 2 o'clock, we just tapped out. Couldn't do any more beer. But yeah, there's, that's an area that's, got a lot of good beer action going on. And then Germany, or just Europe in general, just beer is such a big part of their culture that anytime you go there, you realize beer is more than just a glass of suds made from malt. It's about culture and community, and I always try to mix that into the soup, the recipe for the soup that is Pedal House to some degree. And we're very focused on the customer experience, but to me, that doesn't mean steps of service or even great quality beer. It's about our people connecting with the people sitting at the bar. And one of my favorite things to do is just sit at the bar, unannounced. I don't shake my hand to the guy next to me or lady next to me and say I'm the owner. I just develop a rapport, conversation with them, see how far it'll go till they maybe realize it, because the staff's coming over and asking me how's everything, blah, blah, blah. But I think that's the most important part of our business at the end of the day, is just connecting with the people that are sitting across the bar from you and enjoying your product that you make.
Cool. And Jamie, interested to hear a little bit about the culture of SanTan. What is your business infused into it that makes experience maybe a little bit different from somewhere else you might go to, be it one of these breweries or even another town down the road?
Well, to start, I think breweries, not just SanTan, have an advantage right now, and I was speaking to some about staffing. I think we're all dealing with some staffing shortages, but as a brewery, we have a culture, and our staff takes ownership that they're a part of something that maybe another restaurant doesn't have. So, they can see a 6-pack at the grocery store and say, I was a part of that, sitting on the shelf. So I don't think breweries are dealing with the same level of staffing shortages that maybe some other restaurants are, because we have a little more brand loyalty. And as far as culture, I think fun. But yes, we all hold the same standards, and customer service is obviously number one. But I think our staff has fun, and that's if I was to use a word for culture, that's the word I would want to use. Is
cool. Have
fun doing your job.
It's definitely more fun working in a brewery than it is an Amazon warehouse.
I agree.
That's
Kudos.
our pledge as an employer.
Thomas, I can tell you that I used to live here before SanTan was a brewery. Has anyone been here long enough to remember Justin's Buffalo Street Grill?
I've been there.
Which is now Craft 64. I mean, that was the only thing going on in downtown, and SanTan moved into Valley Bank, but I already bought my house in another part of the valley. So it's been really fun to check in and see how things have been growing, and it's growing great. But if you want to compete with other downtowns, or at least make sure that everybody's growing at a great rate, I mean, I think places to look at right now are downtown Mesa. Downtown Gilbert, I think, is almost a little bit too Hollywood for me right now. But they've done a great job, and we'll see if they can survive that initial rush, because I think the prices are going to go up, and we're going to see who falls out. I know Julian's shaking his head about that. It's going to kind of peak and plateau. Flagstaff is like one of the original great downtowns, and with several breweries. But take a look at Clarkdale, Cottonwood. I think they got a great mix of wineries and distilleries, and Clarkdale's a little bit removed from Cottonwood, but they've got a craft beer hotel with a brewery. What thrills me about this is we're a different state. We literally have Los Angeles. We live in the Los Angeles of the Southwest in terms of size, but guess what? We can get out of town really quickly, and it's great. But we've lost a lot of buildings, and we've lost a lot of bones for downtown. And I'm really happy that Chandler's able to maintain that and then also build on it. Like, this structure would not fly in a lot of other cities. So I know they had to work a lot with people with clipboards and things. But we lost that kind of in parts of Phoenix, and Roosevelt Row is a great area. There could have been 12 of those if we would have all kind of seized on it. And I know you've got offices and interest down there too. So for the people who have any kind of policy, really got to consider that stuff. And you can park for free in Chandler, but it may not always be the case. And that's an issue that people fall differently on. All those things matter. Parking matters. But, how many bathrooms require matters. And I think you guys have got a great balance, but work's not over.
Yeah. So I travel across the state pretty frequently, get to see a lot of what you all are talking about in a lot of different ways. And, when I'm West Valley, I'm usually talking about what's happening here because there's, I think, a lot of great synergy between the relationship between the businesses and the people with the clipboards, and but also the vision, right? What Downtown Chandler is actually doing to infuse differentiation between neighboring cities and towns, and even the types of experiences of special events that are happening here. So, Rob, kind of interested in your perspective. What do you see Chandler doing well in its development as they work with these breweries and they work with the walkability, the parking, all the issues that every downtown sees? What is Chandler doing different and well compared to the others?
Well, I think they've got great public-private groups working on this, including the downtown group here, and they were already doing things well when they had the Ostrich Festival down here, and I know I know why I had to move, but they didn't just give up. I think they've just really leveraged what they've had, and I would not. It's great to see the development moving further south, and I expect that to sort of continue. But it's a lot of different things. I think just knowing that Julian's going to be moving into this area and to really sort of have the back of SanTan, who's been down here for a long time, and again, just the things going on here. I know you got owners and employees and people who are really interested in keeping things special and distinct here. So, but again, the Mesas of the world are happening too. So we all got to challenge each other. So just like Julian said, it's that cooperation. Did I say that right? Cool. Yeah. So, and as an organization, we're getting more involved in local things. We're generally a state law kind of thing, but the pandemic has taught us that we really have to support our members in ways we didn't used to. So, for our businesses, I hope they call on us a lot more to ask for things and challenge things. So, I guess it really starts with the great businesses that are here.
Cool. So, a couple final questions, and then we'll wrap things up. Jamie, you had mentioned the staffing issues. Again, kind of elephant in the room. I talk to people about this every day because as consumers, we should all be conscious of the issues that our local businesses are facing. And you know what? If you need to wait a little longer to get a table, if you need to wait a little longer to get your food or your beer, or your favorite business isn't open at the same hours that they were pre-COVID, that's not necessarily the business's fault. They're adapting to the changing times. So kind of curious to hear from everybody. What are you doing to adapt to the challenges that you're facing with staffing? Do you see a curve? Do you see this changing anytime soon? and or what is your perspective on what's going to come soon?
Well, the restaurant industry was heading this way before COVID. I think it comes down to for a long time, if somebody left the restaurant industry, they said they got a real job. And that's kind of something we need to overcome or to stop, because it is a real job. You can make a career in our industry. So for people not to consider our industry a real job, I think is the first step. Right now, we have to try harder to make our place a place that they want to work. I was a little late today because we had a 401k meeting for all of us, so we can have 401k for all of our staff. And there are things that we should be doing anyways, but yes, we have to work towards, as a whole, creating a perception that the restaurant industry is not something you have to do, or it is a career. It's not just a job to have in college.
Sure. Julian.
Well, I think one thing that's come out of this labor shortage is a much deeper appreciation for the job the guys do in like hot, greasy, intense, stressful kitchens. And it's nice to see. I mean, I've always been real respectful of the guys in the kitchen and try to say hi to the dishwashers and get them a beverage. But I think as an industry on the whole, we've realized, man, we can't operate without these guys and girls, and how important they are to the lifeblood of the success of the business. So, I mean, I feel like Chris and I, who are pretty charged with that responsibility of staffing in general through our GMs, we've really we've spent almost as much time on company culture, pay, benefits, respect, recruiting as almost any other part of our business for the last at least 6 months, maybe 9, out of necessity. But, we at the corporate office and even at the store level, we have a company culture like SanTan's where we encourage having fun, not taking yourself too seriously. But I think this has been eye-opening for us on, what could we do more to be more attractive as employers. And I'm sure everyone's kind of doing that, so I don't know that it necessarily gives us a competitive advantage when it comes to staffing. But at the end of the day, it's the people that make the engine go, and it's important to, be able to compensate them and treat them in a way that they want to work for you.
Love it. And Bucky, making a career as a brewer, leading the charge behind everything everybody's tasting tonight, and being able to contribute to something great. What's it been like building a career here at the Perch personally?
I mean, it's been nice. I have a lot of support from my boss, so it's a great place. I mean, I get to try pretty much anything I want, and I feel that's good because there's so many things going on all the time right now in craft beer, whether it be the science or just new yeast or malts or whatever, and it's good to be in a place where I don't have to make the same thing every day, So
Love it. All right, put everybody on the spot. Final question. Not counting the 3 great breweries we have here, one brewery comes to mind, Arizona-based that you love. One of your partners in the guild, local brewery you want to shout out. Who's it going to be? What are they doing? What are they doing that's great that makes you love them?
I have been successful in this job by not answering that question directly. So I think if you want to ask me, off when we're done here, what's a great brewery, I'm going to ask you as many questions like, where are we going? Who are we with? Do we want to eat? Are we walking? Are we able to, do we have an unlimited travel budget? That kind of thing. So I'm not going to answer that, but I do want to say a lot of people ask me how to support breweries during the pandemic, and what I want you all to do is just think about where you live and what you can walk to and what you think should exist. And for me, that answer was I used to get stuff dry cleaned, and I wasn't getting things dry cleaned during the pandemic, so I literally went through all my stuff and kind of did a refresher, and that's the kind of mentality you have to have. And if that's not in your area, maybe downtown life is for you, right? Or maybe it's you want to be closer to school. I think everyone's talking about the great
Resignation.
This could be the great migration for you all. Reevaluate where you live and what you do, and then once you've found that, just be invested in the success of those places, and networking with people. That's what I would ask. So you can then tell me what the great brewery that you go to is.
Love it. You guys can answer it any way you want. So if it's as ambiguous as that, that's okay.
I'm allowed to answer that question. I go to Puebla Vida a lot. I go to Tucson to hike and catch some music, so I always catch myself going there for a couple pints.
Cool.
I might have got fired because I didn't say Tucson has a great downtown. They have an excellent downtown. Oh, my God. They're going to hate me down there. Oh, my God.
Is this airing in Tucson? My favorite brewery is the one I'm closest to. And I will say one of the best brewery names ever invented came out of this brewery back in the day by that gentleman sitting over there, called Pale Yeah.
I guess Arizona Wilderness. Just I've known those guys since I brewed in Chicago. Did a few beers with them back then, and they always work with a lot of local companies. So I think that's pretty cool in general. So
Cool. Right on. Well, can we thank our panelists for sharing tonight? Want to thank the council member that helped put this on tonight, John from Chandler, everybody on staff that helped produce everything tonight. Can we give them a round of applause? Hope everybody sticks around, supports the workers here, supports this local business here tonight, and reminds all your family and friends every time you support a local business, that business turns around and supports 10 others. So keep your money in the community and spend your money with the local businesses right here in Chandler. So thanks everybody for having us tonight.
So, like I had mentioned, this was our first VOC live event. There will be 3 more in this series, so tap in. I quickly want to thank Chandler Vice Mayor Terry Rowe. This podcast is brought to you by the City of Chandler, but these live events are funded on behalf of council. Within the next couple of months, we'll be having our other events, and you can find out all of those great details on voicesofchandler.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you at some of these live events.